I'm MessyMsxi, and today I'll be sharing with you about my journey in the arts and illustration industry and how I have continued to create works that I think is meaningful to myself and hopefully meaningful to others. Basically, in this masterclass, we hope that it will be interactive and also responsive for the participants. I mean, not just for myself, being a monologue, I hope that there will be a dialogue between myself and you all who have joined us this morning. So how to use this mural board is that there are 3 questions in these sessions that I hope that you all will respond to. And to do that, first you need to find the post-it, double click on it, and then you can actually add your name first, and then after that you can start typing in your responses. And then after that, okay, so the first question being the green box. So these are the questions that I always ask myself when I create my artworks. And also I think while I'm sharing with you all about some of my works, I think that it will be good if you all can also think about some of the environmental issues that you feel strongly about. Because there's so many things that's happening out there. I don't think that within my knowledge I know everything. So it'd be great if everybody can share. And also, do you think that your peers care as much, and why? I think it's important for us to think about not just things that we personally care about, but what people around us care about. Okay, so this is the first question. And the second would be, how and what can art do to be an effective tool to communicate these messages to a wider audience? And how have you seen any art that has changed the way you think? Okay, so this is a sharing also between yourself to the rest of the participants over here. If there are any artwork out there that you feel like is so meaningful, put it on the post-it, and then we can also have better understanding of artworks happening, and we can learn from each other. So within your own means, what is one thing that you can create that carries these messages to advocate your beliefs? Okay, so if you are an artist, maybe there is something that you really want to create. Tell us more about how you're going to create and put in the post-it. If you are not an artist, maybe within your lifestyle, there are ways that you would there are habits that you carry out day to day. So you can also put that into the post-it. So it is really an open and a very sharing session. So just feel free to fill it in. And during any time when I'm talking, you can also refer back to Muralball to include your responses. All right. Okay, so I think now I'm good to start with my sharing. Just 1 second. Okay, so a bit about myself and my background. Art and illustration for about more than 10 years, maybe 11 years. And how I started was I was studying at Temasek Poly, visual communication. And then after that, I went out to do graphic design for a bit, and I realized that it doesn't suit. So then I proceeded to pursuing a degree in London. My college is called Central Saint Martin College of Art. And over there, I also did graphic design, but I majored in illustration. And I think during that time, it gave me a lot of tools to equip myself with how I want to be an illustrator and also what kind of illustrator I want to be. So that 3 years during my degree, it really helped me grow in the creative field and also my understanding of art and design. Okay, and I'll be sharing with you some of my selected works since college days. So this is one of the earlier works that I did when I was in uni. So from a very early time, I've always been thinking about consumerism and environmental issues. And I think it's innate. Some people are just more drawn to certain topics. So for me, I naturally respond to like, oh, how our lifestyle changes our living habits, and our living habits then in turn actually change the environment because of consumerism. And of course, looking at the larger scale of things, talks a lot about manufacturing till our resources. So for example, this artwork is called Disappearing Landscapes. So you would see that outside this house actually has a lot of items disposed. It could be sofas, it could be daily necessities such as their bags or like their electronics. So a lot of times these things are broken and are easily thrown away. we don't look for alternatives to either recycle or to repair them. So these living habits also create a lot of trash in our environment. And why I name these murals of disappearing landscape is because when our landscape are taken over by the amount of trash on our streets or junkyards, then we will have to start disposing them outside our house. And when we start disposing them outside our houses, it looks very unsightly. So what happened is then we replace natural landscape onto the facades of our building. So this one is, you can tell maybe it's a block of flats. And then we have paintings of palm trees on the flats. But outside the flat, we have a lot of trash, and this trash would naturally be very recognizable to you. Furniture, their electronics. So maybe at that time, in a few years from now, we will have too much trash to even be recycled. So when we can't even recycle them, they have nowhere to go, and then they end up really just like downstairs our block, because no one is actually collecting them when we have more than we can actually cope with recycling. So then this is a landed house, and again we have animals loitering around the trash, and then we have washing machines, and then we have like this huge lake of a mural of a lake painted onto the building. And whether you are rich or you are from the middle class, we all produce as much trash. For the rich, it's really just buying new cars. And even today, cars do not last as long as we wish them to be working. A lot of times they are given a fixed amount of lifespan. So then we have a lot of cars within our trash. Okay, and then they are not as easily recycled as we hope that they are. And next, an effort most futile. So this piece of work, I feel that is one of the more important work that I've done since I was a student. I actually did this in my second year when I had to respond to a brief about me. And there's nothing much that I wanted to talk about me except what I really care about. So during that time, how I conceptualized this work is I read an article when I was on the bus. Then I opened up the papers and thinking about the plastic pool. So what is this plastic pool about? It's actually talking about a pool of trash in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And it blew my mind because I couldn't fathom like how can plastic pool be floating in the ocean so far away from us? How did it get there? So I started to research about different types of pollution, and that was why I came about this series. And why I say an effort most futile, because I feel that within one, like my own means, it's very very difficult to do anything, but then it's a lot more effective if we work as a community. So in this artwork, what the girl is doing is that she is clearing up the ocean with her little boat that she has sailed. And then we see that she's very, very tired. She's scooping up trash, but her boat is already half full. And when you zoom out, she's actually very, very tiny in the middle of like a huge pool of trash. And I think that is what I was thinking about when I thought of the plastic pool, that in the middle of the ocean, it's very hard to access and it's very hard to clean. It's almost like very futile, and we see that she's in the middle of this picture, and then when her boat is full, she probably has to turn back. This actually was a storybook about her journey, and on the top image over here, she's actually trying to save the sail. So what happens is when there's so much density on the surface of the ocean, a lot of the animals are trapped below and they are unable to come above water to breathe, and so a lot of animals actually end up drowning. Okay, so then the next image is her back to square one. Over here she's back at home, and what happened is that she's taking trash out from her living room. And I think this is a very familiar sight for any of us living in today's modern society, where we overconsume and we have more than we need. I believe many of us will have more than one refrigerator. So in the image here, you see that, okay, there's a refrigerator for lunch, dessert, dinner, and then we have multiple televisions. And a lot of times we consume something and we just easily dispose. For example, the packaging of our food, or, we just create a lot of trash. So then this trash, although out of sight and out of mind, they actually go somewhere to be either disposed of or recycled. If you have any questions, if you have any questions that you hope to ask or raise, just put in the chat and I will try to respond whenever I can. And of course, you can continue to add on to the mural board as I talk. So moving on, this is one of the earlier works that I created after graduation. I'm very, very thankful that I managed to pitch and also my proposal was accepted by LTA. So the MRT station that was kind of handed to me to pitch on is Newton Station. And as I researched what Newton means, Newton actually means new town. So when I thought about what does a new town actually means, I felt that what does Singapore means as a new town in maybe 200 years from now? I felt that Singapore being a very small and condensed country, we don't have a lot of land resources. How is one way we can continue to progress in our infrastructure, in our growing population, but yet at the same time be able to keep our heritage. I feel that keeping our heritage, like some of the old buildings that we have today, some of the shop houses that exist around maybe Fat P, Boat P, Chinatown, these are very important landmarks that if let's say once they are torn down for new buildings, we sort of lose some heritage and culture. So in order to keep some of this very important landscape to us, urban landscape to us, the way is to build skywards. So and also the sky is limitless, so we can continue to build upwards. And also in this artwork, you will see that we have a lot of train tunnels, a sky train almost, circling around our landscape. And then it gets very, very, very busy. And you can see that there is almost not much of a natural landscape left. You don't see much of forests or parks or gardens. A lot of times our natural landscape is taken over by our urban landscape. So in order to have some of a natural landscape, we can explore underwater. So in this artwork, I think in a lot of countries, we are also exploring how we can utilize underground spaces. So in this artwork, underground is like a new oasis. It's like underwater where you see that a lot of the architecture actually mimic the shape and the forms of corals. So it looks a lot more natural. And it's almost like man trying to recreate nature in our own way when we kind of have lost nature. So while the infrastructure and construction is forever and ongoing, because that's how man behaves, we don't really stop creating or inventing, so it gets very, very busy. So the underwater is like a new oasis. And so if you have been to Newton MRT station, you will find this near the escalators, near the MRT platforms. Okay, so this is how it looks like. It's actually about 3 stories high. So as you travel along the escalator, you'll be able to discover different parts of the artwork. So also because of the kind of narrative that revolves around my work, sometimes I get to work with brands who are interested to campaign about sustainability or the environment. So in this artwork, Tiger actually collaborated with Air Inc. So what Air Inc is about is there's this group of scientists. They actually managed to recycle soot. They use soot and then they created into ink. So using this ink that is recycled from pollution, I then created a landscape of how Singapore is actually a garden city. So within our city landscape, you start to see trees and some flora and fauna around us. And this was live painting that I did about 4 years ago using air ink. So I kind of treated the ink as a form of a watercolor. I added water, I diluted it so that I can create gradient among some of the very harsh strokes of like the outlines. So this is the final painting. And moving on, an exhibition that I did at Substation 6 years ago. It's called Out of Hand, Out of Mind. And this has nothing to do with the environment, but what I wanted to put in is that because it's a very pivotal artwork during my career as an illustrator and slowly trying to move into creating larger works of larger scale. So because I took a leap of faith from doing illustration to doing soft sculpture, it kind of opened up opportunities for me later. So I'll share with you what I mean by that. So this piece of artwork, this sculpture is actually 143 meters long, and within the stretch of the artwork, there's actually a lot of sewings, and these sewings actually were reflections of my mind and things that I was going through. I just put them on using thread onto cloth. And it's almost like an inside out reflection of my thoughts and my body. So over here you can see the scale of the sculpture, and this was actually inspired by a drawing that I did long time ago. One of the drawing is under the series 梦中无人. So in this artwork, there's this pair of hands that stretches out from the brain, like the brain at the end of the room. So what it's about is that from my brain, my thoughts, comes my creation that's using my arms. So a pair of arms and a very big brain and a lot of thoughts weaved into the sculpture. So because of this artwork that I did, that I took a leap of faith to create, I actually learned a lot about how I can. So basically how it started was that when I was given Substation, this very, very, very big room to do an exhibition, I walked into the space and I was kind of overwhelmed. I felt like if let's say I were to just put 2D drawings onto the wall, I would have a lot of empty space in the middle of the room. So after 6 months of doing drawings, I decided to dispose the idea and take a leap of faith to create this sculpture. That's why when I said that this was a very pivotal point was because I may or may not really know what I'm doing, but I just told myself that I needed to try. Otherwise, I may never get a chance to create something like that again. Okay, so then you would see that on these arms, I actually stored a lot of my thoughts, like fear makes me very uncomfortable and doubtful, out of sight, out of mind, which is something that I always feel is like we may not see it, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And so this phrase actually always keeps me thinking about what's out there, or even it can also reflect on other people. If other people are not showing that they are crying, does it mean that they are not suffering? Or so this out of sight, out of mind actually embodies a lot of things around us. So some other writings on the arm. Okay, and because I did that exhibition, Singapore Art Museum actually came forward to ask if I would be interested in creating an installation at their museum for this children's exhibition. So I thought like, what do I really want to say? What can I share with children that is, I think, educational and relevant? So I thought of creating Plastic Ocean. And when I sent in the proposal about Plastic Ocean, trust me, I had zero idea on how I'm going to do this. I know nothing at all about creating an installation because I'm not installation artist. But because I did my previous exhibition, it kind of gave me that courage to say like, okay, I can overcome this. So this was maybe one of the largest scale artwork that I did during that time and even till now, because the amount of people, the amount of hands and labor that went into this was just so much. It's like you can imagine everybody had to clock 10 to 12 hours every day in terms of collecting plastic, cleaning the plastics, stringing the plastics, counting the plastics. So for us, when we're doing this installation, every piece of plastic was like a material, and we cherish every piece of trash. They are no longer trash, they are like material to us. And so we knew the materials so well that we know that okay, we need to look for example, more packaging. We need to look for more bottles of a specific color. And then my team would actually reach out to their friends and family members to like, can you keep some plastic bottles for us? So when I was doing this, nobody really understood what I was doing. I actually felt very alone in creating this because while I was collecting plastic, I felt like Alang Guni and I had a lot of trash to wash. For example, if I come across an oil bottle, like it's so oily, it's so dirty, but then me and my team still had to clean them with like detergent and make sure that they are very clean, clean enough to enter into a museum setting because we don't want to bring any pests with us. So this is the scale of the artwork. It's huge. The room was about 13 meters by 7 meters, and it's almost like the process of collecting and creating was never ending. It was very, very painful. And this is one night when we thought like we actually might have finished the artwork. We just laid down on the floor and we looked up and then we were like, actually trash can look quite beautiful. So this was that moment when we were all like exhausted and then we just took a group shot. So these are some of my team members that helped me. This is image of a work in progress, you would see that everywhere is littered with trash, like trash over here, trash over there, and there was just immense amount of logistics that anybody can take care of. So my team members had to be very proactive in knowing where and what is going on. So I was also given an opportunity in Mumbai to recreate this artwork, and it's actually very interesting that I got to create this in Mumbai because Mumbai is actually situated around the coastal area of India, and at this location called Sasun Dock, it's actually a fishing village where Mumbai actually started. So at this fishing town, these ladies who are helping me in some of the cleaning and string of the artworks, they work in the morning and then in the afternoon they would join us. And I also got to visit some of the recycling like shops in the ghetto areas where these people really make a living out of separating trash. And in India, almost nothing is wasted. All the trash that is collected, they try their best to give them a second life. So hence you see that the sorting of the trash is even color sorted or material sorted. And then we managed to buy, because it's very hard for me I don't have a network there. So I couldn't get people to keep their plastics for me. So what happened is we went there and then we bought the materials according to what we needed. So whatever that we were washing were also from the market, and they were also very, very dirty because some of these bottles may have been maybe scooped up from the river or scooped up from a drain, and then we had to clean them thoroughly. So this is the results of everybody's hard work during my 2 months in India, from collecting to washing till installing the artwork. Somebody asked, can you share with us a time or moment where you encountered inertia or indifference from people about the message or cause which you feel passionate about? How did you overcome it and continue to push till today? So when I was creating this artwork, I also felt that I had to make an attempt to change the way I live. In fact, I felt very natural that if I am preaching about it, I should set an example of how I live. And because I kept thinking of that, I made it very hard for not just myself, but the people around me when I was very critical about, hey, let's not use straws. I brought metal straws. Let's use my metal straws. But then it took me a while to realize that people may not be as comfortable with what I'm passionate about. And sometimes when they disagree with me, I get very upset. I feel like if you are my good friend, why don't you understand what I'm trying to do over here? And what I'm doing over here is not for myself, but is for everybody's well-being. And so I felt very misunderstood many a times, but I also realized that I cannot force my beliefs onto other people. Everybody else will have their time where they feel that they are convicted to live a more sustainable lifestyle or go into a habit of recycling, or just make small changes in their life. So everybody has their own time, and it's not something that will change overnight, because it is also not that easy to remember every other day that, oh, I need to bring an extra tote bag. I need to carry an extra bottle if I want to take away. But for me, when I was doing this, although in the beginning it might be a bit of a struggle when I'm starting to be a bit of an idealistic. I was a bit idealistic in the way I wanted to live. But slowly it became a lot easier. So moving on. This is at Esplanade. I was just given this venue called the Pips Playbox. It's actually on the top level of Esplanade, where children can actually, where adults can actually bring their kids to play within the area. For example, if somebody is watching a theatre performance, they can actually bring their kids here to spend 1 hour or 2 hours. So this place was newly kind of like renovated, and they had towers of cabinets, and they didn't know what to put inside them. So when I got to visit the space, I opened the cupboards and they were empty. They were just white cupboards, and I just thought that being kids, they like to open and close everything. So it will be perfect for kids to open and discover something. They may not take something out of it, but maybe visually it might intrigue them. So in these boxes, if you open, there are a lot of different types of animals. So these animals may look a bit quirky, and in very, very bright colors, because bright colors would attract children. So I remember one time when I was painting this cabinet, and then the ball in the middle, the blue ball, had like 6 legs. And then a parent walked to me and she said, I think you drew this wrongly. That the ball has 6 legs instead of 4. So because the work was incomplete, so she didn't really understand what was going on. So I just explained to her that, oh, what I was trying to do is to create all these strange animals that children might actually find that there's something wrong with them. So actually what she's telling me is right. There is something wrong with the ball. But what went wrong? So they will actually receive, so at this tick box, they will actually receive a worksheet about a bit of a history, man-made and natural disasters that happen around us that actually changes our flora and fauna. So for example, you talk about Fukushima or Chernobyl, these nuclear disasters actually causes our animals to mutate, and for survival's sake, they actually evolve to be stronger animals. So they may look a bit different. And so the curved cabinet is actually a storytelling booth where a storyteller will sit in front of it and tell a story. So within the different cabinets, and then there are also hints of, I will draw an octopus tentacle to just indicate that there is something hidden inside. So we have birds, and then we have insects, we have marine creatures. So there are also some fishes, hairy fishes, fishes that looks like elephant. So this graphics actually I try to engage and make it interesting for children, yeah, to pique their curiosity. So this other artwork has a similar concept to what I did for Esplanade. This is for Canberra Station. So for this artwork, I actually collaborated with, it's actually a public artwork that I had to collaborate with public. So I got some of my students, LTA, managed to find some residents that stay around Canberra and to join us for this, to create this artwork together. And my concept that I pitched to LTA was about looking at the flora and fauna around Canberra. Because if you know where Canberra is situated, it's actually very near the northern coast of Singapore. And from there, I actually felt that it would be helpful and useful for the participants to have an encounter with our natural wetlands and respond to the artwork rather than me just throwing them a brief and then they draw something and then they send it to me. So for the overall engagement, we managed to go for a walk around Sungai Buloh wetlands where we had guides to tell us about the plants around us, the birds, the insects. So from there, they were told to think about how would our natural landscape change when we have more urban development around us. So you will find that on the platform that is closer to either side of the platform, I think it's the platform that is closer to a overhead bridge. So that from the overhead bridge, you are also able to see this artwork. So this artwork spans across an elevator and where the notice boards are. So it's quite a prominent area when you come up from the lift. So when you come up from the elevator, you'll be able to see them on two sides of the van. So over here, the animals are actually put into these frames because of the layout of the station. Initially I felt that it would be very difficult for me to create an artwork because there will be constantly this grid that cuts the artwork. So that's why I proposed to actually put this artwork in like little frames, almost like a picture that you find in a museum, natural history museum or something. So it looks like many picture frames of animals around the station. So some of the drawings are responses that I received from the public, and there are also some that I created from my response to our local flora and fauna. So most of these birds and animals are local flora and fauna, but I kind of changed and mutated them. Okay, and then I wanted to share about like, so if let's say I always talk about everything that is about environment, how can I create artwork that even like, how do I create work that corporations will be keen on like even hiring me for something? Because maybe the topic is so niche. But for me, I feel that as an illustrator, I don't just pigeonhole myself like I only want to do illustration. That's why I took a leap of faith to venture into doing sculpture, doing installation. And I think continuously, as the narrative is consistent, people kind of understand what you are trying to say. But at the same time, I also believe that your technical skills can also help in the kind of work that clients would be keen on engaging. So in my own time, I love doing watercolor, and I picked up watercolor by practicing painting plants or packaging, anything that I was around me. I thought that, oh, will make a nice painting. I just practice painting. And so OCBC, friend by OCBC wanted to have a sustainability campaign. So I proposed to them a series of watercolor illustrations I would do, and then they put this onto the cards, their credit debit cards. And apart from this, they also put the artwork on some tote bags. This is done in watercolor, and I wanted to just create something very soothing of what Mother Nature means to us. So the title, if you recall correctly, is called Green In or You're Out. So it's talking about like how being part of nature, Mother Nature, is like the way to go. So over here, this guy is nestled in my nest that is surrounded by greens. And then under the comfort of Mother Nature, so the narrative is always a little bit quirky, and then I try to create vibrancy in using different types of plants, even though it's when you just look at it plainly it's very green. But what makes it interesting is maybe the type of foliage that I use, the patterns on the foliage. And then over here is I love being under the foliage. So the foliage takes shape of a hat. And then for Facebook, they have a art in residency program that they will invite artists to create artworks around their office. And so this is the first artwork that I did for Facebook in 2017. And I was still thinking about like, of course, our nature and how it will change. But over here is really talking about our urban landscape being in the far future. So over here, we are no longer bounded by gravity. We actually see the landscape floating around, and they wanted a very positive outlook. So the artwork is actually very colorful as compared to the Newton artwork that is in grayscale. So this artwork is about life, a new life in another space. So usually how I do start with a mural is that I would do a digital artwork. I painted this on iPad, just a sketch to send to the client as a proposal, and then I would put in color for my own reference on what I'm going to paint, and then I would use that as I create my painting so that I don't get a shock of my life like, oh, what is this artwork, or the client doesn't get a shock of their life like, why does your proposal doesn't look like what I have on my wall today. So for them, it needs to be quite clear of what you're creating and what they're going to eventually see in their office for the next few years. Over here, it's my first time trying to do watercolor style using acrylic, and it was very difficult trying to blend the way I do watercolor. But there's always a first time, and I always believe that if you never try, you never know. I think at most, if I fail to deliver my intention, then just repaint the whole wall lah. Just paint it white again, and then you start afresh with another technique. So there's always risk in taking or in trying a new style or a new technique that you are not as good with, but then it's always worth trying, because after trying the first time, then you realize you learn something, and then if you like it, you can try again. If you don't, you know that you have tried. This artwork for Esplanade is also similar to what I did for Facebook, and it's a lot more detailed. Just this artwork alone, I think I spent almost 3 months drawing. So a lot of my works don't just take days, they take months. So sometimes people ask like, oh, what do you spend your time doing? I actually have to be, as an illustrator, you have to be so disciplined to be able to stay put at your desk and to be drawing, to hone your skill in something. And so this is a close up of part of the mural. And if I just zoom in, I don't know whether you can see, there's actually so many details of like birds, natural landscapes, buildings, pollution, this is Earth being attacked by, I don't know, aliens, and then we have weird vehicles or like animals flying around. So these are all like an imagination of the future. It may not make sense because I don't really know what's going to happen in like 300 years from now. Oh, and then my cat is over here in the middle. So in my work, I like to always like hide my cat somewhere. So this artwork took me just 3 months on the iPad, slowly drawing. But actually, I am that kind of artist that I don't mind spending a lot of time at my desk drawing. I actually find it very therapeutic. And to me, it is meaningful, but to some other people, it might be a waste of time. But meaning is subjective, and we make meaning based on what we believe in. So if you feel that this works for you, then continue to do what you love and believe in. So some of the close-ups that the photographer took. So moving on from the main wall of the mural, then I also exhibited some drawings, and I also painted on the walls like this in fluorescent toxic fumes. I've got a question here. What is the most challenging thing when you venture into a project on? The most challenging thing is, I believe it's challenging for everybody, is to, okay, for me is I have a lot of self-doubt whether this work is going to resonate with anybody. Because for me, I believe that my art should have a function. My art should always speak to others. I believe that others should look at my work and feel like, oh, I understand what she's going through. I understand what she's trying to say. And I think that this is something that I can share with another person. So for me, that is meaningful to me. Like if let's say I can create something that people connect with. And whenever I create artwork, I always revisit those questions. Is this going to be meaningful? Because as an illustrator, if let's say every day I want to set aside 3 hours to do my personal work, I want to make sure that these 3 hours is invested into something that is not just for myself, but to be able to advocate for something that I believe that will be meaningful. Yeah, so that is my challenge. And then second question is, can you share with us some ways that you practice to stay disciplined for your projects and career? To stay disciplined, I need to tell you why I am disciplined. I am disciplined because when I was younger, like maybe 16 years old, I've always been quite a disciplined kid lah. But when I was younger in my secondary school days, I always tried working very, very hard, study very, very hard to beat my brother in his academics. My brother is damn smart. My brother is like a straight A student, like 9A1 and 1A2. And I always felt very defeated as a kid. So when I have a brother that is so good, I always felt very small. And then in my own efforts, I'll be like, okay, I just need to work very hard. Maybe I can be even halfway of what he is. So when I had my O levels results, I didn't do as well. I was very, very disappointed. I was like crushed. Actually, I didn't even know that I was going to be an artist one day. I just thought that if my brother is going to be a doctor, I will also be somebody important one day lah. Okay, I didn't know I was going to be an artist. So when I got my O levels result, I was so disappointed. I was like crushed. And then my brother came to the room and then he know that I was very upset. So for the very first time, him being a brother started talking to me and like sort of like counseling me. And then I just told him like I'm very sad that even though I worked so hard, I didn't do very well. And I was like beating myself up about it. And then he said this 4 words that I remember till today. He said 勤能主勤劳组he said something along the line. Okay, I can't remember the 4 words now, but he said that diligence will make up for your incompetency. So he said that like if you're not good at something, you just need to spend more time on it to be good at it. And then I realized that okay, I may not be very good at studying, but maybe I'm good at something else. And if I'm good at something else, I just need to spend a bit more time to be better at it so that I can make the best out of it. And so from then, 16 years old till today, I always feel that okay, I'm not the smartest person out there, but I will work very hard and be very disciplined if I want to achieve something. Okay, somebody is very helpful. Somebody put in 勤能主捕捉. Yeah, 勤能捕捉 is that you make up for your incompetency or like your lack of intelligence. So For me, discipline is like if I want something really badly, I have to pay, I have to give my time and just do it. Yeah. So I hope that answer your question. I feel that everybody will have a different journey of how you want to stay disciplined. For me, that is how I push myself or motivate myself. Okay, should I continue? And then I will continue with like the stories later. Okay, so this is um the other artworks that I did for the exhibition. And over here, this artwork on the right hand side is actually a very big globe. And you may not be able to see, but I spent like weeks, maybe 3 weeks, just doing pointillism with watercolor of different colors, and it actually looks like pollution. So what I wanted to say in this artwork is that every inch of the surface of our earth will be polluted with plastics or toxic. So it actually looks beautiful, but it's actually kind of like destroyed. So I just spend my time like doing pointillism thing. Like these are the things that I do at my desk that I don't think people know. But to me, it's like okay, I need to do it. I just do it. So I spent about 2 weeks doing this painting. Okay, and then I'm also very thankful for a second chance to work with Facebook. They gave me 2 walls in their newly renovated South Beach office, and in this office, this piece is a lot brighter than the other one because I did one that is at the reception and it was very very overwhelming. Later I'll show you the picture. And then the curator was like, wow, I think we need to inject some colors because it might be too harsh on a environment if everything is a solid dark blue. um so in this artwork I actually put in some colors, and over here the details you see, like I do like again like pointillism, a lot of little colors of plastics toxic in on the landscape. And then this is the painting, this is the work in progress. The wall is about 4 or 5 meters. um and so this is about the mutation and the future of our natural landscape when we give them the space to regrow and to regenerate. They are actually stronger. So the message is positive. They are actually stronger and they are a lot more resilient than what we think nature is. But actually, truth to be told, every time when we leave a space, you will see that nature will eventually take over. So I feel that that is nature in itself. They will always come back. They will always bounce back stronger. So over here you see that maybe some of the fungus looking plants or flowers are larger than life, and they are almost like um, they almost come back more beautiful in their own way. Although they may, I don't know, to some people may look a bit scary, but to me they look quite I wanted to create such that they look weird and strange, but at the same time they are still beautiful in their own ways. Yeah, so this is next to the pantry area. Okay, some of the details. And okay, over here you see like the dots. So again, me and my assistant, who was my sister, I think we spent 1 or 2 days just drawing dots. And then sometimes you have to go over the dots second time so that it's more striking, especially the orange. Um, so my sister will be like, why do you always do this kind of thing? Like must like uh like for example, this is unnecessary, right? You must spend a few more days just painting dots. But I'm like, yeah, I just want the dots. So she's like, okay, we'll just do the dots. Anyway, then this is just other details. So zooming in, you see like I would paint small details around to make it more fluid, to kind of bring details into the flowers to have more life, like because um yeah, nature is actually very soft. So that was the kind of vibe that I wanted to create. This was the wall that my curator said that it's too much. I feel like we're going to be like, it's too overwhelming because it's so harsh. It's very, very dark blue. But actually, on top of the dark blue, I painted some inflorescence. So if you are there in the office, you'll be able to see from different angle that it's actually glowing. So over here, you see that there's like a bit of colors that can only be picked up when you are there in real life. I failed to capture that in pictures. Um, yeah, so over here, all the butterflies, beetles, insects are huge. It's kind of talk about they evolve and they are like also I'm also influenced by some of the films that I watched. Like there's this film called um by Ghibli Studio. They have they always talk about nature and how nature evolved. Um, so I think in one of the film is that the insects are so huge, and then the girl can use the shell of the insect eye as a vehicle or something like that, as a shield. So those films or animations or things that I read about actually also influence some of my drawings when I think about things like, oh, what do I want to paint? How should this insect look like? Yeah. Okay, and this is like super colorful because some clients just like it like, can we talk about sustainability in a very positive, from a very positive angle? So basically, this is about Earth regenerating and coming back to life with uh, new species of um, different types of flora, and then it's just like bursting. Um, yeah, okay. So this is for SK2, and then you will see some of the details. Some people say that it looks like coral. Um, okay, I just got a question. How do you choose your color scheme, like dark blue for this and purple for previous and gray for Newton project? How do I choose my color scheme? I don't really uh let me think about it. There's another question earlier. Have you always been exposed to art as a young kid? Have you always been passionate about environmental issues since a young age? Yes, I'm going to share about CC question soon. So over here, this artwork also has lots of details and it looks very complicated to paint, but if you plan your painting in terms of layers, it's not that difficult. So for example, what I mean by that is if we look at this image, right? Um, the easiest way to start is always don't think about the details. The details is always the last bit that you should do. So I would first draw the form of the mural, and then I will demarcate all the different parts of different colors. Then I will finish painting them. So for example, some details over here, there's overlap of a background color, like a camel bra and then a marigold. So I also had a digital reference that I would keep comparing, and as I draw the details I would know like, okay, which part should I draw. And it's also very natural when I make mistakes, or like I mistaken this bit for another color. But um as you paint, sometimes you just have to take your time to plan. So number one thing for any mural is planning is very important. So first I plan how I'm going to do the background. Then after that I plan my details. So if I have an assistant, I will draw out the details for her. Like, okay, for example, this top part, after we finish painting the lavender, I would draw out the cream colored shade and say, can you help me paint the cream first while I draw out other parts for you? So we will do section by section, and then usually the small little details I would be the one putting them down while my assistant helped me to touch up. Yeah, so just always just do bit by bit. It might look very intimidating, but then planning helps in just staying calm and just like finishing the work. Mm. So this is the wall at the entrance. Yeah, and then so that was at SK2. SK2 is a P&G brand, and as they liked the artwork that they saw, so then they wanted me to create another artwork about sustainability. For the second artwork, I decided to create a terrarium, because a terrarium actually has a ecosystem within itself. So it is sustainable even though you have to do very little about it. So that was the concept for the mural. And then I tried to propose, why don't we do a cutout of a shape of a bottle, and then I would paint within the bottle. Then we wanted to create a like a casing on the outside, but then it was just very difficult to find somebody who was able to do that. So that can't be done, but like I tried to paint a bit of lighting on it to just create that dimension. So in the bottle, you will see that there are like flowers, and then like they are growing just within their given space. And then there's like clouds of fumes around it. So the clouds that are in the bottle are of like lighter blue, to just say that the air in the bottle is clean, is a lot purer, and then outside is pollution. So the idea is that P&G continues to create product with sustainable means. Yeah. So this is some of the details of the artwork. Yeah, and then this is actually ends like my sharing slides on work pertaining to environmental issues. Yeah. So to answer Cece's question, yes, I've always been exposed to art as a young age because my dad is an artist. So I remember when I was very young, he used to have this very big table, maybe about 2 to 3 meters by width, and it's huge. And then he would lay out his rice paper. Rice paper is a Chinese painting paper onto the table, and then he will be painting different drawings at one time. And me being a young girl, I would sit on the table and watch him paint. And I think I just grew up doing that. He did teach me a bit about like Chinese painting, like painting fishes and flowers. But then I didn't really like pursue that lah. So my dad is a artist, so naturally I think I got his genes. I feel like I'm very similar to him because, for example, at home I also keep a lot of plants and I keep guppies, and I'm also an artist. So there was one time when I was feeding my fishes, or when I'm just looking at my fishes, I called my sister and said, hey, can you come here? Can you come here? Can I come and see my fish? So she walked over and then she looked at my guppies and she's like, you are just like Papa, always looking at fishes, always looking at plants, and always just painting. So I feel that for me growing up, even though I wanted to compete with my brother, I realized that there are things that I am naturally more drawn to, and I should just be true to myself and pursue what is natural to me instead of creating something that is not natural, like studying and trying to get an A for science. So passionate about environmental issues since a young age. I think since a young age would be since I was in Temasek Poly, like when I was 19. Because when in TP, my graduation project was also about living sustainably and about consumerism. So I think consumerism was more of the and consumerism and our lifestyle is kind of like the thing that got me thinking about how the whole cycle of um, from the birth of an object to the death of an object, the life of it, like where did it come from, and after we have used it, and when we throw away, where does it go? So I think these questions informs my work, and although my work may not necessarily just be about like, hey, we need to be green, we need to recycle, we need to reuse, but where does it all stems from? It's actually from my curiosity about where do our objects come from even, and at the end of their life, where do they go? And so it's always asking myself questions, and then I think that is how I have this passion about our environment. Okay. So color scheme. I don't think I have a fixed color scheme. I think I usually just um go with like the artwork, go with the film, and then I respond to the brief accordingly. Be it like I'm using pencil or I'm using watercolor, then it determines the color scheme. Yeah. So I think I'm done with my talk for now. Okay. So we are back to the mural ball. Maybe we can just look at some of the responses. Okay.
Yeah, hi, Zizi. I think that we managed to get a few participants to actually share their thoughts. Maybe we can invite Cindy on to share about her thoughts.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah. Thanks for the talk, by the way. That was very inspiring.
Thank you
And
for being here this morning.
yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So, I think for this, you asked like what are some of the environmental issues that you feel strongly about. I feel like a lot of the environmental issues intersect with each other, but I think something very huge that I feel strongly about is like land degradation and deforestation. So as a background, like I actually am born Indonesian. I moved here quite long ago, in like 15 years ago. So a lot of what I remember was my hometown as a child, what my hometown is as a child. So I was actually born in like Borneo,
Mm.
and yeah, I think it's quite widely known that the because of like palm oil plantation, the forests in like islands like this, like Borneo, and even like I think there's a lot around Indonesia, like Sumatra, Papua, all this. So Yeah, it's like it's mostly used for huge businesses that capitalize on this like palm oil, and not only that, it destroys habitats for animals such as like the famous like orangutan population there, but it also destroy like the hometown of the native people, so the Dayaks who live in the Kalimantan forest, who actually use the forest as like their source of income and source of food, source of a lot of things. Yeah. So I think there's a lot to be talked about in this regard, but that is generally what I think about lah. I can
So
think
how
of.
do you feel?
Yeah, I think it's a bit like when it comes to environmental issues that is being done by huge capitalist corporation, it makes me feel quite helpless because I know that these are very powerful people who are doing all these damages, and they are doing it for like, they say they're doing it for to move the country forward, or to move economy forward. But I think yeah, it's just very disheartening, and it feels like it's there is a huge lack of education amongst like powerful people on what kind of alternatives they could have pursued instead. Yeah, something like that.
Oh, then I can I ask you a question? Then
Mm.
does it change your consumer behavior?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I so in individualist perspective, I feel like so this is a background, I'm vegetarian for this reason, and then I try my best to like use reusables in any way that I can, and also like recycle all the waste that I produce in my household. Uh, but yeah, I feel like there's so much that I can do. In individual perspective, you always say that, oh, I'm voting with my dollar, but then it's only me alone.
Mm.
But it will only create an impact. I feel when like more people join in and more powerful people join in. Yeah. Mm.
I feel you, but then you
Yeah.
just to know that you are not alone. Because
Mm.
I believe that there are many people who feel alone out there, but then if you start to count how many of you are, but actually there's actually a community that cares.
Mm. Yeah. But do you feel like what we are doing as individuals, is it affecting the people up there, like the people who are making the big decisions?
Mm,
I think especially for you, because I know you work with a lot of these big businesses, right? Do you feel like what you are doing is actually like influencing their um values also as companies?
uh, I feel that top down, uh, it is very, it's very difficult for the people on the top to make decisions based on like environmental well-being.
Mm.
Maybe that their priority is really making a buck. Um, but then I think consumers, we also have that power to just put our foot down, although it may be very small impact, very 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 small impact. But then I think brands are starting to also look into what consumer wants and how do they connect with consumers to be better, to create better products. So I think it will take a very long time. It's a very very difficult route because there's a lot of cost. It's a high cost
Mm.
in being sustainable. I
Yeah.
had this conversation with my friends so many times, and they don't believe in using metal straws. So so I think it's difficult lah. But within your own means, if you can live with your actions, I think that's the most important bit. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. We'll move on to the next
Hi,
person.
Cindy. I saw that you said that you would like to use IG infographic, and then you thought and you share some of the works that's done by some of the you share some Instagram people that you would like to share with the audience. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, just on this, I think like what many artists are doing, like you yourself, MessyMsxi, yeah. Like I think when you influence through very like attractive visuals, and spread education and like information, it's much more acceptable for people. So I think like this kind of like social media or just like illustrations that are going around is very helpful in terms of like educating the public, like bigger mass. And also it's a very easily spreadable thing, especially on social media. And on I think IG infographics, you kind of just like repost, reshare, like, comment, these kind of things. And it creates a big wave already.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we call upon Joshua to share. Hello, Joshua. You still here?
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello. Hey. Anyway, I just want to say thanks for sharing your journey. I think it's really interesting to see how much art or how much heart that the artist actually put into every single piece of artwork. I'm not a creative myself, but just listening to her share, I think it's just amazing to know that every single detail put into the artwork to communicate an issue. Yeah. So yeah, for myself, right, on top of the first question, perhaps just for myself, it's really about the type of electronics we use. There are a lot of cheaper alternatives, to be honest, but they are not really energy saving. So from my limited knowledge, I just feel that there are a lot of times, sorry, that's not my comment, by the way, but I don't take credit for it. But for myself personally, I just feel like that there are some conscious effort has to be done to choose the different alternative that's more energy saving. Even though it might be more expensive in a way, but actually it stretches out to longer years. So you actually dispose of a less electronic waste down the line as well. Yeah, and um, what's the other, how do you think the peers care as much? To be honest, right, not a lot of people know that there are these alternatives, and even if they feel they know, they look at the price difference, they'll definitely choose the cheaper alternatives. Yeah, so compared to a $500 vacuum cleaner to a $60 vacuum cleaner. So how do you actually make that choice? Yeah. So maybe for myself, maybe moving on, I also want to touch on the second question as well. How can art and be an effective tool? I think before even knowing what MessyMsxi does, I think I don't really pay much attention to what artists do as well, and the kind of level of detail they put into communicating anything. So I think art is an effective tool because it's everywhere. Yeah, you can see it in the street, you can see it in your packaging, you can see it in like in your public transport and all this thing. So it's yeah, so it's really a amazing way to communicate that message. Yeah. Sorry, I think you're muted. You don't know, so I can't really hear you. Yeah. Sorry. What did you say just now? I didn't catch that.
I cannot hear him actually.
Oh. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry. I think yeah. Yeah. Anyway, have you seen any art that has changed the way I think? I think for myself, I've not really been exposed to a lot of artwork, but yeah, just really listening to what artists have been sharing, and will really help me to pay more attention to the things or the kind of story that they are trying to convey, yeah, in the artwork. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you,
Thanks.
thank you. Yeah, it seems like some of the audience also have their interest in the electronic waste as well. Yeah, we have one more person to come aboard to share. That would be Tin. Hi, Tin.
Hello,
Hello.
and thanks for sharing.
Thanks for helping me with the Chinese idiom.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so yeah, I feel that today's sharing by you is very real. Is for sharing your vulnerabilities and self-doubt. I think many artists have it in them as well. So one of the things that that there are actually many things that I feel concerned for, but there are also many things that I feel that I can't do much for it, and I feel disappointment in in what I can do. So, for example, the unreliable recycling system. So previously, I've been recycling very earnestly, but the recent years, I can see that some recycling scams, that things have been sent around to the poorer countries and not being recycled. So this actually is a very big disappointment for me lah. So after that, I've been stopping to do certain kind of recycling. I feel that it's not the way to do it, and yeah. So and other things are electronic waste. Something that I've recently encountered is an open call for innovation. It's by it's by a food company that gives away toys, and the moment the the brief is that they want small electronics inside each toy that is given away, like sold in like $2. So the moment I think about the moment I hear it, I feel that especially in Singapore, when we throw away this kind of things that worth very little in money value so often, and we want to, instead of a plastic is bad enough, we want to put little electronics into the small toys. So these are very concerning.
Can I just ask, right? Because you were talking about like recycling scams.